and talk about this with Taji Mustafa, a media spokesperson for Hizb ut-Tahrir. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Mustafa. Tell us about the coverage of this war since it started in your part of the world. We have been covering this war here at Press TV for 17 days now, bringing every development on the air and telling people what is happening inside with our 4 correspondents. But how has this war been displayed to the viewers in your part of the world in the past 17 days?
Well, in the UK, there is a sanitized version. What I mean by that, you do not get the real works. Sometimes when watching TV, I actually switch between maybe one of the Arab channels and Press TV and the BBC. And you do notice a very stark difference. So, for example, you may have bodies, as some of the images you were showing just before this program, maybe a dead body's been brought to the hospital, babies who finally died in hospital and been wrapped up. You'll find that maybe on the BBC that may be regarded as too grotesque, too extreme. So what really happens is that in the West, people do not get a full picture of what is going on. Nevertheless, even the little that is shown is horrific, and that is affecting a lot of people. And there's something happening in the Muslim community in London. I actually get text message from people saying, watch Press TV or watch some other channel, because many Muslims realize that from the mainstream channels they're not getting the full bloody reality of the disaster that is unfolding in Gaza.
And what do you think this reality is withheld, that the channels that you just mentioned do not show what is actually happening on the ground? After all, it's a humanitarian catastrophe as described by the UN and many others that have been watching and monitoring the war and the siege that has been in place for almost 2 years. Why should not the world know exactly what is happening to the people in Gaza?
Well, you see, the Western press, and if you talk about the British press in particular, they claim to hold a concept which is balance, and this affects how they actually approach stories. So, for example, some of the way they may portray the fighting in Gaza, the massacre in Gaza, is that there are 2 parties which are fighting each other, 2 equal parties, whereas anybody who studies the reality knows that the Israeli state is using F-16s, Apache helicopters, and all sorts of heavy weaponry against a defenseless people, largely. So we find that they claim that they're seeking to uphold certain very noble standards. In reality, what that actually allows to happen is that the governments of the West are able to portray a different version of events to their people. And there's actually something doing the rounds within the Muslim community. The government is realizing that people in general, but Muslims in particular, are quite upset with what's going on in Gaza and are calling for resistance in Palestine, are calling for the Muslim armies to move to help their brothers and sisters in Palestine, the armies of Egypt, of Syria, of Saudi Arabia, who have so much arms and trained military, are asking them to move. Now, the government here feels that that may affect the people it calls its allies. Because let's remember that the British and American governments are very close to the tyrants ruling the Muslim world. So they don't want the Muslim communities here to be so upset and so angry that they direct their venom towards their allies in the Muslim world, meaning the Western supported dictators like Mubarak, like Assad, because this increases the fervor and the desire for the change of government in Egypt, in Syria, to have an Islamic government which will defend the people of Gaza. So it serves the governments in the West to have a toned down version of what is really the reality on the ground.
From what you have been seeing, the pictures that are and the news that are coming out of Gaza, are you optimistic that there